So here we go. Doctor Who's back. Space Babies and the Devil's Chord. What do we think? Hello, welcome back to my world of stuff. My name is Paul Mount. I'm about to enter into a briefish analysis of the two Doctor Who episodes which aired tonight, May the 11th, on BBC TV and already available on the iPlayer, and wherever else you are in the world you can watch it on Disney+. Now the first thing I want to say about these reviews, in fact all the reviews I'll be posting over the next 6 weeks for the rest of the series, I'm quite happy for you to comment down below. It'd be lovely to hear what you thought of the episodes. However, if you didn't like them, what I'm looking for is constructive criticism. If you're going to just post, it is crap, it is woke crap, it is gay woke crap, it is Disney crap, RIP, Doctor Who is dead, I don't care about that. So if you want to post that, please do. But as soon as I see that post, I will delete it. So you will effectively be wasting your time if you post that sort of stuff on this channel. However, if you didn't like the episode and you've got well-considered constructive criticism and you can explain why you didn't like the episode in grown-up language, I would love to hear from you. So if you're of the RIP Doctor Who woke, go broke, go woke crap brigade, go and find Nerdrotic and Bullshit. They're the lads you want to talk to. I'm just not interested in that sort of discourse. Talk about Doctor Who, but talk about it sensibly, like an adult. Can be done. Having said that, Space Babies and Devil's Chord have aired on BBC One tonight. A double whammy of Doctor Who to start off this new Series 1, Series 14, whatever you want to call it. And I will say before I go into the individual episodes, I was going to do individual reviews, but as there's been 2 episodes, I'll do them both here. So this review may be a bit longer than ones for upcoming episodes. We've all been wondering what Doctor Who would be like in its new era, BBC Studios, Bad Wolf, with a significant cash injection from Disney, who are paying for the rights to stream the series across the world, and obviously have some input into the content. Not a great deal, I think, because I think Doctor Who is pretty much an unknown quantity to Disney, and with Russell T Davies back on board, they've just left it to him as the person who runs the show to know the show and to make the show that he thinks will engage an audience. These 2 episodes felt very Disney, though. They definitely did. I think the second one particularly, and I'll talk about that obviously a bit more detail later on. The second one I think ended with almost like a cheeky swipe at Disney, a cheeky, this is what you think Disney Doctor Who is going to be like. A swipe at Disney and a swipe at fans who think it's going to be Disneyfied. Look, here's Doctor Who as Disneyfied as it can be. Now let's move on. And I think that's what we're going to find. Space Babies then was the first of these 2 episodes, 45-minute episode written by Russell T Davies. And it was fun, but it was no more than that. It was exactly what I thought it would be, to be honest. And it was fairly typical of the season openers that Russell T Davies used to do back in the day, where he would use the first episode of any season to reintroduce the show. Not exactly a reboot, but just a reminder for people while the show had been off the air what it was about, the Doctor, his companion, the travels, the TARDIS and so on, what it all means. The show's lexicon, if you like. And I think that's what Space Babies did. Certainly in its first few minutes, I think it was very much an info dump. It picks up from where the Church on Ruby Road, the Christmas episode, left off, with Ruby entering the TARDIS and the Doctor telling his life, basically. I'm the Doctor, I'm from Gallifrey, my people are dead, I travel through time and space, I don't have a job. There were a couple of scenes that were there specifically to explain all that to a new audience. A lapsed audience, perhaps, and people who just forgotten about Doctor Who, perhaps, over the years. I think it did it quite well. I think that came across quite well. I think where the problem with the episode was, I suppose, is that the rest of the story was a bit silly. Yeah, there's no getting away from it. When you've got a story called Space Babies, it's going to be a bit silly. The conceit here is that the TARDIS, first of all, travels back to prehistoric times at the request of Millie Gibson's Ruby. And, of course, there's a quick flash of some dinosaurs, the little butterfly effect gag. And then we fly off into the far future to a spaceship orbiting an alien planet. I think it was mentioned it was a colony planet. I'm not entirely sure. I think it was. Which is inhabited by a strange alien creature, the Bogeyman, which is roaming the corridors, roaring and snarfling. And in the main control area, a bunch of very cute little babies in prams who appear to be entirely self-sufficient. That turns out not to be the case. Much romping and rattling around, the Doctor shouting "Space babies" every 3 minutes. And it was fun. I mean, this isn't an episode I'll go back and rewatch in a hurry. To be honest, I can't imagine ever rewatching it, because I think what it did, and there's nothing about it that makes me think must watch that again, apart from the performances, and I'll come back to that in a moment. It was a very silly story, but I think it was one that was designed to draw in an audience by its audacity and its insanity, I suppose. People who maybe don't know Doctor Who around the world will watch this and think, what the hell is this? Whether they'll think it's any good or not is a different matter, but I think they'll hopefully be intrigued by the backstory that we had about the Doctor, the references to Ruby's past as a foundling, nice little tease at the end where the Doctor does a body scan on Ruby. I think for me the strengths of the episode were, one, the moments where it suddenly became dark just for a moment. This is something Russell does quite well. He can turn on a dime and do something very silly and then spin it round so there's something quite threatening. The scene, for example, where the baby Eric goes to attack the boogeyman monster, and the episode spins because this tiny toddler in a stroller is putting itself in deadly danger. For a second, we're led to think that something terrible's happened to it. Those moments, I think, work well. Those little dark bits, the little references, and I suppose the woke bit in the episode was the reference to refugees and the plight of refugees. And I think those bits worked well. But the rest of it was very light and very frothy. I think the plot worked in terms of having this sort of baby theme running through it. I don't know how much to say, because I don't know. I'm assuming people have watched it by now, so these are going to be spoiler reviews to an extent. The bogeyman being a bogeyman created by baby bogies. I mean, yeah, it is the stuff of the nursery in a way, and I think that's possibly the criticism as an adult fan, as a you're old man watching this stuff. It's very childish. I mean, it is. But I think it's designed for a new audience. It's designed for a young audience. It's possibly designed for a very young audience who still laugh at farts and bogies. It's not subtle stuff, but I think it did the job well enough, and it looked great. The effects were good. But there's nothing, as I say, it's not one I'll rush back to, because there's not a lot of subtlety beyond a few amusing gags tying up babies and things. The FX, as I said, were very good. There is something uncanny valley about babies with moving mouths and things. That looks a little bit... Of course, the strength of the episode, the Doctor and Ruby, I mean, they're great together. Shudigat was, we saw the potential there in his first episode and in The End of the Giggle when he appeared there. But now when he's out there in the TARDIS with Ruby, the energy, racing around corridors, the zest for life that he brings to the Doctor, this new Doctor who's got this new life, having managed to disengage with the baggage of his previous incarnations. He's full of it. Basically, he's full of it. And the spark with him and Ruby, Millie Gibson's Ruby, they spark off each other so well. So I can absolutely see from this episode what it was about the pairing of this two, which made them so attractive to Russell T Davies and the casting team. They just light up the screen together. So a fun, flawed, silly start to the season, but I think it did its job, as I said, in introducing the Doctor for new people who are watching this. The Doctor travels through time and space. He's got no family. His planet is dead. Ruby's a mystery as well. I hope there's enough there to hook people in. My only concern, I think, would possibly be that this isn't the sort of sci-fi that we're getting these days. I mean, if you look at the elite sci-fi shows we're getting on Apple and Netflix and so on, they got bigger budgets, obviously. Doctor Who is punching up there now. The budget is fine. I think it looks great. But it still occupies that family zone, and I think that's possibly where it may excel, because science fiction, as much as we rave about series like Three Body Problem, Severance, Silo, and all these shows, they are very much niche science fiction shows that appeal to niche science fiction fans. try saying that after Two Bananas. And I think Doctor Who has always had that appeal, a broader appeal than that. And I'm hoping that this will translate now to this huge worldwide audience that the BBC and Disney want for the show. Because I think all those shows, Three Body Problem and so on, they're not watched by a family audience. They are watched by a sci-fi audience. So I think there is a niche gap here that I think Doctor Who could fulfill. My only slight concern is that perhaps some people might have watched Space Babies and thought, this is childish, I'm not going back here. But I think there were enough mysteries seeded to keep people coming back, and I think you'd be swept along by the energy of it. Whether it's strong enough to bring in an audience who want to come back, I don't know. If they do come back, however, they will be rewarded with something much better. Oh, by the way, I should say, of course, as far as my ratings are concerned, I give Space Babies 6 out of 10. Thank you. Right, as I said, if they did come back to watch The Devil's Chord, they would have been rewarded by something much, much better, much more audacious, I think, much more boldly confident, much darker as well. There's a lot of darkness in this one. And this is, in many ways, a spiritual sequel to The Giggle, the third of last year's David Tennant specials. It picks up on the themes that we have now in the series of gods and supernatural creatures who are bleeding through into reality and creating threats that the Doctor can't fight because he's never faced anything like this before. He's always dealt with robots and aliens and monsters and creatures and things that have a corporeality in our universe. Now he's dealing with magical things, creatures that can manipulate music, as we saw in this episode. He's out of his depth, and I think there's an interesting direction to take the show. And this is obviously what Russell T Davies was referring to a few years ago when he said, I found a new way of telling Doctor Who stories. And this is what it is. He's set aside, momentarily, the science fiction, and he's going to give us a bit of focus on slightly weirder things. And that's interesting. That's interesting. It's got a lot of potential. So this story then starts off with, in 1925, with the first appearance of Maestro, played by Jinx Monsoon, the drag artist. When I heard a drag artist had been cast in Doctor Who, I rolled my eyes. I will admit I rolled my eyes and thought, because I've got no issue with all the woke stuff that everybody else gets worked up about, but I do find the whole camp and drag thing a bit tiresome and a bit unsubtle. So I wasn't hugely impressed when I heard that some drag artist I'd never heard of was being cast. However, I will say, Jinx Monsoon knocked it out the park. It was a really good, powerful, intense performance, and very much, I don't know if she saw Neil Patrick Harris playing the toy maker in The Giggle, but it had that sort of malevolence to it. It was quite a threatening performance, dressed in this sort of ornate costume covered in musical keys and things. It was a powerful performance that, although it was a camp performance, it was quite a threatening and dark performance because it instilled fear in the Doctor, who doesn't know how to deal with this sort of adversary. The whole thing, of course, riffs on the idea that Ruby wants to go to 1962, 63 to watch the Beatles record their first album, which might seem a little bit unlikely from a 21st century girl, but it's explained within the context of the text that her mother listened to lots of old Beatles albums, and we know that Ruby herself is in a band. So yeah, I think that fits. They travel back to the 1960s. They dress up in clothes of the era. They're having a great time rocking and rolling around Abbey Road, walking across the famous crossing, going into Abbey Road Studios, or EMI Studios, as they correctly identified it at the time. Although it wasn't filmed there, it was very cleverly edited to make it look as if they were there. I think it was actually filmed in the Penny Lane area of Cardiff, which has similar sorts of streets. Once they get there, they discover that the Beatles don't appear to have the musical talent that they're notorious for. And it seems that music has died. Music doesn't exist. Something's happened. Something has infiltrated the Earth's timeline and removed music from it. And what builds on from here is the Doctor confronting Maestro, terrified that he can't beat Maestro, but trying to find a way to beat Maestro. I really enjoyed this. I thought this was actually excellent. This was very much a Doctor Who story in ways that perhaps Space Babies wasn't. I don't know. Space Babies seemed so off the wall, but this was very much in the classic style of Doctor Who, travelling back in time, very well realised time period. I love the reconstruction of the Abbey Road, interior of the Abbey Road Studios, which is incredibly well done. Again, another great performance from Ncuti Gatwa, showing real steel here, a real fear as well. A fear of something he can't control now. And he's connecting things. He's connecting the giggle. He's connecting the toy maker. Millie Gibson again, effervescent as Ruby. Just really sparks and lights up the screen now. I really hope she's around for the duration of the next series because she's such a gift for the show. And of course, the ending with this outrageous musical number, there's always a twist at the end, which is not only, I suppose, a reference to the Doctor's Adventures often having a twist at the end, but it was very much a nod to Disney. Now, whether it was done for Disney's benefit to say, look, typical Disney song and dancing Doctor Who, or whether it was done as a little tongue-in-cheek for the fans of, look, this is what you thought we were going to do with Doctor Who. Look, we're doing it, but it's very tongue-in-cheek. I'm not sure which it was. Bit of both, possibly. For the fans, there was a lot of fan service actually in this episode. Really nice bit where the Doctor is looking across the London skyline and telling Ruby, I'm over there now. I'm in the Totters Lane junkyard, referencing the very early days of Doctor Who, referencing his granddaughter Susan. Other bits, I don't know if you noticed, there was a billboard which advertised a new single by Chris Waits and the Carolers. Doctor Who fans of some vintage will remember the reference from An Unearthly Child as a pop group that Susan was listening to on the radio. The whole sequence where the Doctor takes Ruby back to her time to show her what would happen if Maestro isn't beaten is a direct lift from a sequence in Pyramids of Mars in 1975, where the Doctor takes Sarah Jane to 1980 to show her what would happen if Sutekh isn't beaten. So that's a definite nod, still, if you like, from a classic Doctor Who story. But there was lots of little bits here and there that connected this much more than I thought it would to the classic series. So I'm going to give The Devil's Chord 8.5 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10. Beyond all that, to the episodes themselves, there's lots of stuff going on. There's lots of things, mysteries. We've got the mystery of who Ruby is. There's this connection between the Doctor and Ruby as the foundling, both foundlings. The Doctor is suspicious, as we saw when he did the body scan of her at the end of Space Babies. He suspects there's something that's binding them together as foundlings. We've got all the stuff about the snow, which is a bit bad wolfy, the sort of a warning that something's not right. We've got Susan Twist, the actress Susan Twist, appearing as various characters throughout the episodes. Who is she? Why does she keep turning up? So there's lots of stuff going on in the background. Lots of things, mysteries bubbling away, which is what Russell T Davies does in his Doctor Who seasons. He seeds things throughout the episodes that pay off eventually. And I'm glad he stuck to that style of storytelling because I think that works very well. And he was a master of doing it. Stephen Moffat tried to do it. He tried to have these themes and things, but he tried to be too clever. So they didn't really pay off, mainly because I think he'd forgotten half of them by the time he got to the end. And they never fitted anyway. They were just tried to be cleverer than they needed to be. I think Russell T Davies brings it down a notch, makes it intriguing and fascinating, and gets the grey matter working as he's trying to work these things out. But it's intriguing rather than mind-blowing, which I think is what works. So I think it's a bold and confident start to the season. Space Babies, as I said, disposable. I mean, I entirely understand the point of the episode. But yeah, it was silly in places, but I like the moments of darkness. I think it did what it needed to do in setting up the concept of the series for people who don't know, and the relationship between the Doctor and Ruby. Devil's Chord I thought was absolutely superb. The more I think about it, in fact, the more I enjoyed it, and I'm actually going to watch it again tomorrow. I won't be watching Space Babies tomorrow, but no, there was a lot in this episode, a lot of things I like in Doctor Who. But both episodes it's a very different type of Doctor Who. It's a very modern, effervescent, colourful, zingy, zesty, camp Doctor Who for the 21st century. But through all that, running right through it, is the spirit of Doctor Who that's been there since 1963. Some of you watching this won't agree. Some of you will think it doesn't seem like Doctor Who. It's not Doctor Who. It's woke. It's this, it's that. But it is thoroughly Doctor Who. Just a very different type of Doctor Who. But because it does what Doctor Who does. It does things slightly differently. It pushes forward. It takes a new direction. But right the way through it is the Doctor and his companion travelling through time and space, having adventures. Sometimes they're more extraordinary than the others, and I think that's where we are at the moment. But it's always Doctor Who. People say no. People say this isn't Doctor Who. But it is. It just is. it's just not your Doctor Who anymore. It's not my Doctor Who anymore. I am still able to stay aboard. Some people can't. Some people can't cope with it. And I say to them, I'm sorry if you feel that way. It's time for you to move on. But don't just infest the internet with your bile and hatred. Just leave it alone. But luckily, I can still recognise the core of Doctor Who in this stuff. And I am embracing this new era. I think Judy Gatwa and Millie Gibson are a great team. I look forward to the rest of the season because it is going to get better from here. I'm looking forward to Boom next week, and that's written by Stephen Moffat. Can you believe I'm looking forward to that? There's a lot of interesting stuff coming up. It's a shame there's only 6 more episodes, but that's the price we pay. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the Space Babies and the Devil's Chord. I really enjoyed them. It's a good start. Let me know what you think. But as I've said, if you're of a mind to post crap about this, then it was crap, it was woke, just don't. You're wasting your time because those comments will not remain on the channel. And that's not me being anything other than a person with a YouTube channel who doesn't want to have to put up with all that stuff. There are other places for you to indulge yourself with that. Right, thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this video. This is purely off the top of my head, really. I haven't sat down and made notes about the episodes. I watched them. I've gone away and finished off editing the previous video. And then I've come in to have a chat about these episodes. Purely just talking off the top of my head thoughts, and that's how it'll be for the next few weeks. Right, let me know what you thought of the episodes. I'll be fascinated to hear what you thought of them in the best possible taste, please. I will see you next week, if not sooner, for Boom. Keep taking the stuff.